Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jenny Halpin, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Robin Hennessy. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Flight Sergeant Geoffrey Raymond Emmett, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome the delegation representing the General Rawat India-Australia Young Officers Exchange Program and Flight Lieutenant Richard Caesar Thwaites, retired, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Now, if you are able, may I invite you to stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you are able and require a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Geoffrey Raymond Emmett. Geoffrey Emmett was born on the 28th of February 1911 in Stawell, Victoria. He was one of 6 children born to Arthur Munro Emmett, a hotel keeper, and his wife Evangeline. Jeff's father was killed in action at the Battle of Pozières in July 1916, so Jeff and his siblings were raised by their mother. He attended the local public school and Ararat High School. On completion, he studied at the Victorian Teachers College before attending Melbourne University, where he undertook a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Education. Jeff graduated in 1937 and was working as a school teacher in Coleraine when the Second World War broke out. Jeff Emmett enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 26th of April 1941. In January 1942, he was awarded his Air Observer's Badge before attending schools for navigation as well as bombing and air gunnery. In August, he returned to Victoria where he married his sweetheart, Kit Pritchard. After a short honeymoon, he was posted to No. 1 Operational Training Unit in Bairnsdale, where crews were trained for multi-engined aircraft operations. He was posted to the Base Torpedo Unit at Nowra in the new year, where aircrew were trained in torpedo dropping procedures and tactics. Emmett was then allocated to his first operational unit, No. 100 Squadron, on the 14th of June 1943. Based at Mareebra in Queensland, the squadron was equipped with Bristol Beaufort torpedo bombers. The squadron was largely responsible for carrying out reconnaissance and anti-shipping and bombing missions against the Japanese around the Solomon Islands and New Guinea mainland. Just 1 month after joining his unit, Emmett was allocated to a 4-man crew to carry out a routine reconnaissance mission around Bougainville in Beaufort A9225. They did not return to base as expected, and a search for their whereabouts was begun. The following day, a message was received that an American Liberator aircraft had sighted and shot down an aircraft in the area of Emmett's mission. The American crew reported that the aircraft had crashed into the sea, and at least 3 Allied crew appeared to leave the plane. Realising their mistake, the American crew dropped a dinghy and supplies to the men before returning to the base for assistance. Weather conditions delayed the start of the search for Beaufort A9225, but by then there was no longer any sign of survivors. Some weeks later, on the 1st of August 1943, another Beaufort crew sighted the dinghy, believed to be the one that had been dropped to Emmett and his comrades. A further search for the men was begun, which again failed to locate them. Over the weeks that followed, the search for the crew of Beaufort A9225 continued. The Americans had dropped several weeks' worth of supplies to the men, and heavy rainfall had ensured any survivors would have had fresh water. This made the authorities believe it was possible that some of the men could have survived. Despite this, the crew of Beaufort A9225 were not sighted again after the 6th of August 1943. For several years, hope was held that at least some of Emmett's crew may somehow have made it to land and survived, or perhaps become prisoners of war. During this period, Emmett's wife gave birth to their first and only child, a daughter named Margaret, whom he would never meet. By 1947, exhaustive searches still found no trace of Emmett and his comrades. With the war now over, authorities wrote to Emmett's wife and noted, "Since the termination of hostilities, thorough searches have been made both by boat and by foot along the southeast coast of New Guinea and other regions, without result. It is therefore necessary to presume that your husband lost his life on or after the last day which he is definitely known to be alive, the 12th of July 1943. With no known grave, Emmett is today commemorated on the Port Moresby Memorial in Papua New Guinea alongside his comrades, Sergeant William Brain, Sergeant George Collins and Flying Officer John Davis. Flight Sergeant Geoffrey Emmett was 32 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Geoffrey Raymond Emmett, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. Lest we forget. Lest we We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.